The Ojo family lived in a small, clay house at the edge of their village in Nigeria. The father, Ade, worked hard as a farmer, but the crops weren't growing well. His wife, Abike, made and sold baskets at the market, but she didn't earn much. They had 5 children who were full of energy and dreams, but the family barely had enough to eat, let alone celebrate Christmas. Christmas was close, and the children were excited, hoping for special food and gifts. But Ade and Abike knew they couldn't afford anything extra this year. They sat quietly one evening, watching the children play with old toys outside. "I wish I could give them something to smile about this Christmas," Ade said softly. Abike sighed. "We're doing the best we can," she replied. But Ade couldn't stop thinking about how sad the children would be. He decided he had to do something, no matter what. The village of Abike was full of stories about spirits and magic. One story that everyone knew was about the Igi Imoli, or the glowing tree. It was said to shine with a golden light and had been in the forest for hundreds of years. Some believed it was a gift from the gods, while others said it was cursed. The elders warned everyone not to go near the tree. "It is guarded by the forest spirit, Erelu Oro," they would say. "Anyone who disturbs it will face terrible punishment." One evening, Ade walked with his eldest son, Tund, near the forest. As the sun set, Tund noticed a faint golden light shining through the trees. "Papa, is that the glowing tree?" Tund asked, pointing at the light. Ade looked at it for a moment, then shook his head. "It's just a story, Tund. Let's go home." But later that night, as Ade lay on his mat, he couldn't stop thinking about the glow. Could the tree really help his family? What if the stories weren't true? The idea stayed in his mind, tempting him. Ade couldn't sleep that night. The golden light from the forest kept flashing in his mind. He thought about his family struggles and how much his children wanted to enjoy Christmas like other kids in the village. What if the tree is a gift from the gods? Ade whispered to himself, "What if it can help us?" The next morning, as the family sat together, Ade decided to talk to Abike. He waited until the children ran outside to play, then leaned closer to her. "Abike," he said quietly, "I think I saw the glowing tree in the forest last night." Abike's eyes widened in fear. "The glowing tree? Ade, you know the stories. That tree belongs to the spirits. If you go near it, bad things will happen." "But what if the stories aren't true?" Ade asked. "What if it's there to help us? I can't sit and do nothing while our children suffer. This might be our only chance to change our lives." Abike shook her head. "You're risking too much. Please don't go." But Ade's mind was made up. He picked up his axe, kissed Abike on the forehead, and walked out the door. The forest felt different as Ade walked through it. The air was cool, and the trees stood tall, their branches weaving together like a roof. The deeper he went, the quieter it became. Even the birds seemed to stop singing. Ade gripped his axe tightly, trying to ignore the stories the elders had told him. "This is for my family," he kept saying to himself. Finally, he saw it, the glowing tree. Its trunk sparkled like gold, and its leaves shimmered like tiny stars. The light was so bright it lit up the dark forest. Ade stood there, staring in awe. He felt like the tree was alive, watching him. "This tree will save us," Ade whispered. He raised his axe and swung it hard against the trunk. The sound of the axe hitting the tree echoed through the forest, making Ade pause. The forest felt still, almost like it was holding its breath. He swung again and again, until the tree began to fall. When it hit the ground, the glow dimmed, leaving the forest in shadows. Ade tied the branches together and began dragging it home, feeling proud of himself. But deep in the forest, something moved. The air felt heavier, and unseen eyes followed Ade as he left. Something ancient and angry had been awakened. Ade dragged the tree into the village, its faint glow catching the attention of passers-by. Villagers whispered among themselves, watching him struggle with the heavy load. "Is that the glowing tree?" one old man muttered. "He's brought trouble upon himself," another woman said, shaking her head. But Ade ignored their words. When he reached home, his children ran out, their faces lighting up with joy. "Papa, is this our Christmas tree?" his youngest daughter, Saad, asked, her small hands touching the shimmering bark. "Yes," Ade said, forcing a smile. "This tree will make this Christmas special." The family worked together to decorate the tree with handmade ornaments. Even without decorations, the tree shone softly, filling their small home with golden light. For the first time in months, laughter and excitement filled the Ojo household. That night, as they sat around the tree, something strange happened. Ade noticed a small pouch lying near the tree's base. When he opened it, his eyes widened. It was filled with gold coins, shiny and real. Abike gasped. "Where did this come from?" "I don't know," Ade admitted. Maybe it's a blessing." The children cheered, dreaming of new clothes and toys, but Abike looked uneasy. She glanced at the tree, its glow now brighter than before, and felt a cold shiver run down her spine. The next day, Ade took one of the gold coins to the market. The trader stared at it in shock. "This is pure gold. Where did you get it?" Ade avoided the question. "Will you trade it for food and supplies?" The trader agreed, and soon Ade returned home with more food than the family had seen in months. That evening, another pouch of gold appeared under the tree. Day after day, the wealth kept coming. Ade and Abike bought new clothes for the children and began making plans to fix their house. They even shared some food with their neighbors, who now looked at them with both admiration and suspicion. But Abike couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The tree's glow was growing brighter, almost too bright, and strange whispers filled the air at night. "Ade," she said one evening, "what if this wealth isn't a blessing? What if it's something else?" "Don't worry, Abike," Ade replied. "We're finally getting the life we deserve." But as he spoke, a shadow passed over the tree's golden light, and outside, the wind howled like a warning. That night, as the family slept, Abike woke to the sound of soft whispers. At first, she thought it was the children talking in their sleep, but the voices were strange, low, cold, and coming from the direction of the glowing tree. She sat up, her heart pounding. The tree's glow had grown brighter, filling the room with a golden light. Shadows danced on the walls, twisting and moving as though they had lives of their own. "Ade," she whispered, shaking her husband awake. "What is it?" he mumbled, rubbing his eyes. "Listen," Abike said, her voice trembling. Ade sat up, straining to hear. The whispers were faint but undeniable. They seemed to echo around the room, their words too soft to understand but filled with something that made his skin crawl. "It's nothing," Ade said after a moment, though his voice lacked confidence. "Maybe it's just the wind." Abike shook her head. "This tree isn't normal, Ade. I can feel it. Something is wrong." But Ade was too tired to argue. "Go back to sleep, Abike. You're just imagining things." He lay back down and turned away, leaving Abike sitting in the faint glow, her fears growing stronger with every passing moment. The next morning, the whispers were gone, but Abike couldn't forget them. As she walked to the market, she stopped to speak with Mama Bizi, one of the oldest women in the village. "Mama Bizi," Abike began, "do you know anything about the glowing tree?" Mama Bizi's face darkened, and she quickly glanced around to see if anyone was listening. "Why are you asking me this, child?" Abike hesitated. Ade brought one home for Christmas. At first, it seemed like a blessing, but strange things are happening. Mama Bizi grabbed Abike's arm, her grip surprisingly strong for her age. "You must get rid of that tree immediately," she hissed. "The glowing tree is not a gift. It is cursed. The spirits demand payment for its gifts. Terrible payment." "What kind of payment?" Abike asked, her heart sinking. Mama Bizi shook her head. "You'll see. And when the spirits come, it will already be too late." Abike hurried home, her mind racing. She had to convince Ade to get rid of the tree before it was too late. But when she walked into the house, she saw another pouch of gold lying at the base of the tree, and Ade, smiling, counting the coins. As the days passed, the Ojo family's life changed dramatically. The village, once filled with whispers of their sudden fortune, now looked at them with envy and awe. Ade's business boomed. He bought new farming tools, fixed the roof of his house, and even started building a small shop. The family ate well, their bellies full, and the children played with new toys and wore clothes that sparkled in the sun. But Abike's fear deepened. The tree's glow grew brighter each night, casting strange shadows that seemed to move by themselves. And the whispers were becoming harder to ignore. One evening, as Ade was outside, talking with the neighbors about his new shop, Abike sat alone by the tree, staring at it. The glow was blinding now, like a burning light that filled the entire room. She could hear faint voices again, and this time they seemed closer, almost as if they were speaking to her directly. "Give us what we want," the voices murmured. "The price must be paid." Abike's heart raced as she jumped up, backing away from the tree. Her hand touched a cold, smooth branch, and she felt a sudden chill run through her. The temperature in the room dropped, and a gust of wind howled from nowhere, rattling the windows. "Ade!" she cried, rushing to find him. That night, Ade was sitting by the tree, counting the new gold coins that had appeared. The fire crackled in the hearth, and the children were asleep in their rooms. Abike rushed into the room, her face pale with fear. "Ade, we need to get rid of the tree," she pleaded. "Ade, please." The voices, "There's something wrong. The spirits are demanding something from us." Ade looked at her in confusion. "Spirits? What are you talking about, Abike? We're richer than we've ever been. This tree has given us everything we ever wanted." "No," Abike shouted, her voice trembling. "This is not a blessing. It's a curse. You've heard the whispers, too, haven't you?" Ade stood up, his face tight with frustration. "You're just scared of change. This is what we've always wanted. We're finally getting the life we deserve." Abike's eyes filled with tears. "But at what cost, Ade? What are we giving up for all this wealth? We don't even know what the tree wants from us." The room grew cold again, and the golden light from the tree flickered like a warning. Ade stared at it for a long moment, then turned back to his wife. "I don't care," he said softly. "This is our chance, Abike. I'm not going to let it slip away." Abike stepped back, her heart heavy with dread. She could see that no matter what she said, Ade wouldn't listen. The tree's power had already taken hold of him. Days passed, and the Ojo family's life seemed perfect. The money kept coming, the house grew bigger, and Ade's shop was doing well. But for Abike, the unease never went away. Each night, she felt the tree's presence, as if it were watching her, waiting for something. She could no longer ignore the feeling that something terrible was looming over them. One evening, as she was cleaning the house, Abike noticed something new. The tree's leaves had begun to wilt, turning dark and brittle. The once golden glow now had a strange greenish tint. She touched one of the branches, and a cold shiver ran through her. The whispers were louder now, echoing in her ears, but this time they seemed to be speaking clearly. "The price is coming, Ade will pay, the soul will be claimed." Abike gasped, stumbling back. She ran outside to find Ade. "Ade, please." "I heard it again, the tree, it's changing. The spirits are angry, and we have to get rid of it before it's too late." Ade looked at her, annoyed. "Abike, stop. I told you this is a gift, not a curse. We're finally living the way we've always dreamed." "But at what cost?" Abike cried. "We don't know what we're giving up. I can feel it, Ade. Something is coming. We can't keep this tree." But Ade just shook his head, turning his back on her. "You're just being paranoid. Go inside and rest." Abike stood there, watching him, her heart heavy with a fear she couldn't explain. It was the morning after the argument. The children were playing outside, and Ade had gone to his shop. Abike stood by the window, staring at the tree. Its glow had faded even more, and now the leaves had completely darkened. Suddenly, a gust of wind blew through the room, scattering dust and papers. The tree creaked, as if alive, and Abike saw something strange. One of the branches was missing. "No," she whispered. "It's starting." She rushed outside, looking around the village, hoping to find someone who could help. That's when she saw the first sign of the tree's price. In the village square, a man named Olyamide, who had been one of their closest friends, was sitting on the ground, his face pale and sweating. People were gathered around him, whispering in confusion. Abike walked over, her heart sinking as she approached him. "Olyamide, what happened?" she asked. Olyamide's eyes were wide with fear. "I don't know. I've been seeing things. Strange shadows. Voices calling me." He looked around nervously, then whispered, "I went to the tree yesterday. I don't know why, but I couldn't help myself. And now something is following me." Abike felt the blood drain from her face. "No, it can't be." Olyamide stood up shakily. "I saw it. The forest spirit. It's real. It wants something from me." A cold chill ran through Abike's body. She had heard enough. The curse had already begun to claim its price, and soon, the Ojo family would have to pay. Abike's heart raced as she walked back home. Olyamide's words echoed in her mind. The forest spirit. It was real. She had been warned, but now it was too late. The tree's curse was already taking its toll. She entered the house, her mind racing. She had to stop this before it was too late. But how could she convince Ade? He had fallen too deeply into the tree's trap. The wealth, the new clothes, the success, it was all too much for him to let go of. As she walked through the house, she noticed something that sent a chill down her spine. The air was colder than usual, and the walls seemed to hum with a low, unnatural vibration. The children were sitting in the living room, playing with their new toys, but even they seemed uneasy, glancing around nervously as if something were watching them. Ade walked in just then, carrying more gold coins, his face glowing with pride. "Look, Abike. Another treasure from the tree." Abike didn't say anything. She couldn't. She couldn't look at him without seeing the man she loved slowly being consumed by greed. She felt like they were living in a dream that was about to shatter. "Ade, please," she said, her voice breaking. "The tree is cursed. I feel it, I hear the whispers. We have to get rid of it before it destroys us all." Ade looked at her, his eyes hardening. "Abike, I've worked too hard for this. This is our future. We can't just throw it all away." "But it's not real, Ade. The tree doesn't care about us. It only wants to take more, and when it's done, it will take everything." "You're wrong," Ade shouted, his voice rising. "You're letting fear control you. We have everything we've ever wanted." Abike's eyes filled with tears. "What if we lose everything, Ade? What if the tree takes more than just our wealth?" But Ade turned away, too deep in his own greed to see the danger. That night, the wind howled outside, rattling the windows. Abike sat in the corner of the room, unable to sleep. The glow from the tree was brighter than ever, filling the house with a sickly light. The whispers were louder, now impossible to ignore. Suddenly, she heard a knock at the door. Her heart skipped a beat. Who could it be at this hour? She slowly walked to the door, hesitating before opening it. When she saw who was standing there, her breath caught in her throat. It was Olyamide. His face was pale, and his eyes were wide with fear. "Abike," he whispered, glancing nervously over his shoulder. I couldn't get away. The spirit, it's after me. It wants something from me, but I don't know what. Please, You have to help me. Abike's heart sank. Olyamide, you have to leave. The tree is cursed. It will take everything from you. Olyamide stepped closer, his voice desperate. I went to the tree, Abike. I thought I could control it. But now it's following me. It wants my soul. I can feel it. Abike backed away from him, fear rising in her chest. You shouldn't have gone near it, Olyamide. No one can control the spirit. Before she could say anything more, the ground beneath their feet shook, and the wind howled louder than ever. Olyamide let out a strangled scream, his body jerking violently as if something was pulling him. Abike screamed for Ade, but it was too late. The wind twisted around Olyamide, and in an instant, his body was thrown backward, crashing into the wall. The room went silent, and then, in the stillness, they heard it. The whispers. One soul has been claimed. Abike's heart stopped as she realized the truth. The tree wasn't just taking gold and riches. It was claiming souls. And now, it had started with Olyamide. The room was still, the silence only broken by the sound of the wind outside. Abike stood frozen, staring at Olyamide's lifeless body. His face was contorted in terror, and his eyes were wide open, yet vacant. She felt the weight of the spirit's presence in the air, as if something unseen was watching them, waiting for more. Ade! Abike shouted, rushing to the door. But when she turned back to look at Olyamide's body, it was gone. The room had returned to normal, as if nothing had happened. The glow from the tree flickered once, twice, and then dimmed. Abike's heart raced as she felt the evil presence in the house. She had heard the whispers too clearly now. One soul had been claimed. Ade! She cried again, running toward the front door. She found him standing outside, looking at the tree, a strange smile on his face. Ade! Abike gasped, grabbing his arm. You have to stop. The spirit, Olyamide, he's gone. It's taking lives, Ade. It's not just money. It's claiming souls. But Ade just shook his head, his eyes glazed over. Abike, don't you see? We are so lucky. This is our chance to have everything we ever wanted. Why do you want to throw it all away? No. You don't understand. Abike pleaded, her voice cracking with emotion. The tree is cursed. The spirit wants more than just gold. It wants us. It's already taken Olyamide, and it will take us too if we don't get rid of it. Ade looked at her with cold eyes, no longer the man she loved. I don't care. You can go, Abike. But I'm staying. Tears filled her eyes as she realized the horrible truth. There was no reasoning with him anymore. The tree had already consumed him, just as it had consumed Olyamide. He was no longer the same. I won't leave you, Ade, she whispered, grabbing his hand tightly. But I will stop this curse, no matter what it takes. The next day, Abike took the children to the village, trying to keep them away from the house as much as possible. She couldn't let them fall under the tree's spell. She needed time to figure out what to do. As she passed the old woman, Mama Beezy, she stopped. Mama Beezy had always been someone Abike could trust. Maybe she would know what to do about the tree. Mama Beezy, Abike said quietly, I need your help. The old woman's eyes narrowed, and she pulled Abike into her home. I knew this day would come, Mama Beezy said in a low voice. You should have listened to me sooner. The tree isn't just a gift, child. It's a trap. The spirit that lives in it is ancient and vengeful. Once it's awakened, it demands payment, blood, soul, or life. But why, Mama? Why does it give us wealth if it only wants to take it away? Abike asked, her voice full of despair. The tree's power is tied to greed, Mama Beezy replied. It offers what people desire most, but it doesn't give without taking. The more you take, the more it will want in return. And once the spirit has tasted your soul, it will not stop until it has consumed everything. Abike felt a cold shiver run through her. How do we stop it? How can I save Ade? Mama Beezy hesitated. There is a way, but it's dangerous. The spirit can only be appeased through a sacrifice. Someone must give up their life willingly, or the tree will continue to claim more souls. Abike's breath caught in her throat. No, I can't ask anyone to do that. The sacrifice must come from the one who brought the tree into their home, Mama Beezy explained. If Ade does not make the sacrifice, the spirit will take him next, and then it will come for you and the children. Abike stared at Mama Beezy, torn between the love for her family and the horrible choice she had to make. She could not lose them, but could she ask Ade to sacrifice himself for the sake of the family? Abike walked back to the house, her heart heavy with the impossible decision that Mama Beezy had presented. She kept replaying the old woman's words in her mind. The sacrifice must come from the one who brought the tree into their home. Could Ade truly sacrifice his life to save them? And what if he refused? What if the spirit came for their children next? The thought was unbearable. When she entered the house, Ade was sitting in front of the tree, his face almost serene, as if he had already accepted the spirit's hold on him. The golden glow still flickered from the tree, casting long shadows across the room. Abike could see the deep change in him, the way his eyes lacked the warmth they once held. He was no longer the man she had married. Ade, Abike said softly, stepping closer. We need to talk. He didn't look up. His voice was distant. About what, Abike? Everything is fine now. We have everything we've ever dreamed of. No, we don't, Ade, Abike replied, her voice breaking. We've lost ourselves. The tree, it's a curse. It's already taken Olyamide. It's not just wealth, it's taken his soul, Ade. It will take ours too if we don't stop it. I know you feel it too. Ade finally turned his gaze toward her. There was a flicker of something in his eyes, regret, fear, but it was quickly replaced by anger. You're the one who doesn't get it, Abike. This is everything we've ever wanted. What's the point of being afraid of something that gives us everything we've ever dreamed of? But it's not real, Ade. Abike cried. It's an illusion. It's going to take us, piece by piece. You have to understand. Ade, please, she whispered, taking his hand. Mama Beezy told me what to do. There's a way to stop the spirit. But you have to sacrifice yourself. The one who brought the tree must give up their life to break the curse. Ade looked at her, his face pale. The shock was evident in his eyes. Sacrifice myself? Yes, Ade, she said quietly. It's the only way to save us. There was a long pause. Ade stood up, his face hardening. You want me to die? For you? For the children? Abike nodded, her heart breaking. I want to save us, Ade. But we can't do it without you. Ade turned away, his voice low. I won't do it. I won't die for this, for you. The words stung. Abike felt as though a knife had pierced her heart. But as she looked at him, she realized that the spirit had already consumed him. His greed, his pride, his desire for power had taken control. He was no longer the man she had married. She turned away, tears streaming down her face. The air in the room grew colder, and the whispers from the tree grew louder. She knew then that she would have to make the sacrifice herself. If she couldn't save Ade, then she would have to save her children. The night was darker than usual, the moon hidden behind thick clouds. Abike lay awake in her bed, staring at the ceiling. The whispers from the tree never stopped. They were constant, like a low hum in the background of her mind. The sense of doom was stronger than ever, and she knew that time was running out. Abike could hear the soft breathing of her children in the next room, and it filled her with both love and sorrow. She couldn't bear the thought of them being taken by the spirit, but what choice did she have left? She had tried everything she could to convince Ade, but he was too lost in his desire for wealth. The tree had already claimed him in ways she couldn't fight. She had failed him, but she would not fail her children. With a heavy heart, She stood up and walked to the living room, her feet silent on the cold floor. The tree loomed in the corner, its dark, twisted branches reaching toward the ceiling. It glowed faintly, a sickly golden light that made her skin crawl. Abike stood in front of the tree, trembling. "I'll do it," she whispered. "I'll make the sacrifice." She placed her hand on the tree's trunk. The whispers grew louder, as if the spirit knew what she was about to do. She could feel the coldness of the tree seep into her skin, and for a moment she thought she saw a shadow move within the branches. The spirit was waiting. She took a deep breath, closing her eyes, and made her decision. She would face the spirit. She would give herself to it, if that's what it took to save her family. "Ade, I love you," she whispered, her voice trembling. "And I'll always love you. But this is the only way to break the curse." Abike stood in front of the cursed tree, her heart racing, her mind filled with fear and determination. The whispers in the air grew louder, the air colder, and she could feel the presence of the spirit drawing nearer. Her fingers trembled as she touched the tree's bark, waiting for the inevitable. Suddenly, the room seemed to darken, and the tree's glow intensified. The branches swayed as if moved by an unseen wind. A voice echoed in her mind, low, deep, and filled with malice. "You have come to offer yourself, child," the spirit's voice rumbled, sending chills down her spine. Abike nodded, her throat dry. "Yes, I offer myself in exchange for my family's life." The tree trembled. The ground beneath her feet rumbled as if the spirit was pleased. She could feel its power surrounding her, but it wasn't a warmth that filled her. It was cold, dark, and endless. "A sacrifice is a heavy price to pay," the spirit whispered, its voice now seeming to come from all directions. "But if you truly wish to end this curse, you must give all of yourself. Not just your life, but your very soul." Abike swallowed hard, but she didn't hesitate. She knew what she had to do. She closed her eyes and breathed deeply, allowing the cold darkness to surround her. "I give myself freely," she whispered, her voice steady despite the fear rising inside her. The spirit was silent for a moment, then the tree shook violently, and the air grew thick with dark energy. Abike felt something pulling at her, something strong and cold. She didn't resist. She was ready to pay the price. As the spirit's power surrounded her, Abike felt her body grow weak. Her skin seemed to lose its warmth, and her heart raced as if it was being torn from her chest. She could feel herself fading, like a candle being snuffed out. But then, just as the darkness seemed to swallow her whole, she heard a cry, soft at first, but growing louder. It was Ade's voice, calling out to her. "Abike." "No." She opened her eyes to see Ade running toward her, his face filled with horror and regret. "Ade, no. You can't stop it," she cried out, but her voice was weak, barely a whisper. Ade reached her just as the spirit's power began to pull her into the tree. His hands grasped hers, and for the first time, she saw the fear in his eyes. The greed, the anger, it was all gone. "I was wrong, Abike. I was blind. I didn't see it, didn't see what I was doing to us. Please, don't go. I'll do anything, anything to save you." The spirit's voice echoed again. "One soul must be taken. There can be no bargain." Abike looked at Ade, tears filling her eyes. She wanted to pull him into her arms, to tell him that everything would be okay. But the spirit's power was too strong. "Ade, it's too late," she whispered, her voice breaking. "But I forgive you. I always have." With those words, she felt herself being pulled into the tree's trunk. The last thing she saw was Ade's face, twisted with pain and regret. And then, everything went black. When Abike opened her eyes again, she was not in the house, nor was she in the village. She found herself standing in a vast, endless forest, the ground soft beneath her feet. The air was cool, and she could hear the sound of leaves rustling in the wind. The cursed tree was gone, but its presence lingered in the air. As she looked around, she saw a figure emerge from the shadows. It was Olyamide, his eyes dark but peaceful. "You did it, Abike," he said softly, his voice no longer filled with fear. "The curse is broken. The spirit is satisfied." Abike looked at him, unsure of what to feel. She had given everything, but now it seemed as if the world had changed. "But what about Ade and the children?" Olyamide smiled gently. "They will be safe. The curse has been lifted from them. You've saved them all." Abike felt a wave of relief, but it was also tinged with sadness. She had lost so much, and yet she knew she had made the right choice. "Is this where I stay?" she asked, feeling a sense of peace settle in her heart. Olyamide nodded. "For now, yes. But one day, you'll find peace again. You've earned it." Back in the village, life began to return to normal. Ade and the children grieved for Abike, but they also found a new sense of peace. The wealth that had once consumed them faded, and they learned to live with less, but with more gratitude. Ade never forgot the lesson he had learned from his wife's sacrifice. He worked hard, building a new life for himself and their children. Though the pain of losing Abike never left him, he found comfort in knowing that her love had saved them. Years passed, and the story of Abike's sacrifice became a legend in the village. The cursed tree was never seen again, and the forest grew quiet, as if it, too, had found peace. Abike's children grew up hearing the stories of their mother's bravery and sacrifice. They knew she had given everything to ensure they lived free from the curse, and they carried her memory with them in their hearts. As they grew older, they made sure that her legacy lived on, teaching others the importance of love, selflessness, and the dangers of greed. The village, once consumed by wealth, now thrived with a deeper sense of community and gratitude. And though Abike was gone, her love and sacrifice lived on, a reminder that true happiness doesn't come from gold or riches, but from the love and care we show one another. The forest where the cursed tree once stood began to flourish again. Over time, it became a symbol of hope and renewal for the village. The trees grew tall and strong, and the air became fresh once more. The spirit, once vengeful and angry, was said to have found peace as well, its thirst for souls quenched by the selfless act of one woman's sacrifice. The village, free from the tree's curse, continued to grow in happiness and unity. And as the years went by, the villagers would occasionally see a flicker of light in the forest at night, a reminder that love, no matter how painful or costly, always has the power to break even the darkest curses. The story of Abike, the woman who gave her life to break the curse, was passed down from generation to generation. Her legacy became a symbol of hope, reminding the villagers that even in the face of great darkness, love and sacrifice could overcome it. The village never forgot the lessons of the cursed tree. As they celebrated Christmas each year, they remembered Abike's selflessness and the peace that followed her sacrifice. And though she was gone, Abike's spirit lived on in the hearts of those she had saved, her family, her village, and the generations to come. The curse had ended, and with it, a new chapter had begun.